Hi, Miz Lizzie here from the Hedberg Public Library. Today I want to share with you some great books by Native American authors about Native American kids. These books are great for middle grade students up through middle school. The first book is called Indian No More. It takes place in the 1950s, which might seem like ancient times to you, but it's actually pretty recent history. There are people alive today who have living memory of the 1950s. Those people might even be your grandparents. Regina Petit's family has always been Umpqua. She's always lived on the Grande Reservation. And her biggest worry has been that Sasquatch might really exist and live in the forests on the reservations. But then one day, the federal government, the U.S. government, signs a bill into law that ends the recognition of the Umpqua tribal nation as Indian. And so all of a sudden, Regina and her people become Indian no more, even though she has been Indian all of her life. She's been Umpqua all of her life. Her people have been Umpqua from before the United States even existed. So this is really confusing to Regina. And what's even more confusing to her and difficult to adapt to is that she leaves the reservation. Her father decides that he can make a better living for his family by taking them to Los Angeles. He takes up the offer of the Indian relocation program to move his family to Los Angeles. And for the first time, Regina meets kids of other races that she's never met before, and they've never met a real Indian before. And for the first time in her life, she encounters the viciousness of racism, both for herself and her family, and also for some of the new friends she is making in the neighborhood. She and her family struggle a lot with being away from their people, the Umpqua people, the reservation, the land. But they also really pull together and find strength in each other, in their new neighbors, and especially from the stories that Regina's grandmother tells her and the family about life in the past and in recent memory as Umpqua. This moving middle grade story is based on the author Charlene McManis's family history. And at the back of the book, she gives some information about her own family story. That was the basis for this fictional story. A great book, Indian No More by Charlene McManis with Traci Sorell. Another great book is I Can Make This Promise by Christine Day. Now in this book, Edie knows that she's Native American because her mother is Native American. But her mother was adopted by a white family when she was a baby. And so she doesn't know anything at all about her Native American heritage. Or at least, that's what Edie has been led to believe all of her life. But then one day she finds in the attic a box full of letters that were written in the 1970s and a picture of a woman who looks just like Edie and in fact has the same name. Well, she becomes angry at her parents for clearly lying to her. And at the same time that she's having a lot of friend drama, Edie decides that she can't trust her parents anymore, so she doesn't tell them, at first anyway, about what she's discovered. But she goes through the box, she reads the letters, and she becomes more and more upset and confused, trying to figure out what was going on and what happened in the past, and why wondering why her parents didn't tell her the truth. This story is also based on another historical but recent injustice, which sometimes is still happening now, but particularly up through the 1970s. The government, again, really encouraged social workers to take away Native children from their birth families on sometimes really flimsy reasons and then have them adopted by white families, therefore losing all connection to their Native identity and heritage. And this story is not only about Edie learning about that heritage and identity, but she also is this really creative, artistic girl. And she is working on an animated film project with her friends. So that's a whole other piece of the story that's really fun to see. And if you enjoy doing art, you'll really enjoy that part as well. The last book I want to share with you today is called Apple in the Middle by Dawn Quigley. Now, Apple's mother also is Native American. She's a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe in North Dakota. At least she was, but she died when Apple was born, so she really doesn't know anything about her. Her father is a rich white surgeon. They live in Minneapolis, and for many, many years he was grieving so much the loss of his wife, he wouldn't even speak about her to Apple. And so Apple has always felt like a really big part of her identity, of who she is missing. Finally, when Apple is in high school, her father relents, and he decides that she should spend the summer with her maternal grandparents, whom she's never met at this point, on their North Dakota reservation. Now, Apple is both excited and apprehensive about going out there because she doesn't know any of these people. She's never had any contact with them. And she's also just a little afraid about being accepted. She's a quirky loner in high school, and she has this habit of just blurting out these random seeming questions, sometimes kind of inappropriate questions, certainly not based on whatever had been happening in a conversation prior to that. And she blurts them out because she's overcome by these visions or feelings that she has, and just can't help herself. She just blurts them out. And it gives her a difficulty in being accepted in high school, and she's afraid that will be the same thing on the reservation. And yes, there are some missteps and there are some trials along the way, but she also finds a community, finds her family, embraces the fullness of her identity, including a family trait relating to those impulses and visions or feelings that she has. This is a very character-driven book about one girl's discovery of what it means to be indigenous in the modern world. And though Apple is a teenager and in high school, and it is a book that we keep in our young adult section here at the library, the focus of the book is really on Apple and her family and her personal identity. And that's what makes this such a great book for middle school readers and those strong readers in the upper middle grades. I hope you'll try one or more of these books. They're wonderful books to enjoy, and we'll see you next time.